welcome to the Intuitive Insights podcast series. I'm Nina Lockwood, founder and director of Intuitive Interim and Executive Search. Throughout this series, I will be sharing engaging conversations with talented leaders from across the UK transport sector. I'm delighted to welcome Paul McGunnigle-White to this episode of the Intuitive Insights podcast. Paul is the Treasury Manager for Trenitalia C2C and also D&I Forum member with the EDI Charter for Railway Industry Association and Women in Rail, and part of the leadership team at Rail Unites for Inclusion. Paul is a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion and shares some thoughts in relation to his day job and also his passion. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Paul McGunnigle-White, a very, very warm welcome to the Intuitive Insights podcast. It is an absolute delight to welcome you to the virtual couch today.
Thank you very much, Nina. It's an absolute pleasure to be invited onto it. I was really taken aback by it, actually. So I'm just really pleased to be here.
Oh, bless you. I think do you know what the main criteria when I meet people and invite them to take part in the podcast is that they have an interesting story to tell. And you and I obviously met at the Railway Industry Association EDI Charter Pride event in September. And so I know with absolute confidence that you have an interesting story to share. So before we get into that, let me introduce you properly. So Paul, you're the Treasury Manager for Trenitalia C2C, a role which I didn't even know existed. So the word Treasury is getting bandied about quite a lot at the moment. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. You're also a D&I Forum member for the EDI Charter with Railway Industry Association and Women in Rail, and very recently became part of the leadership team for the Rail Unites for Inclusion as well, which I'm absolutely delighted to hear. I think there's some fantastic stuff going on with that particular organisation. As I've just said, you and I met at the Pride event in September. Myself and my whole team were at that event, and we were all completely bowled over by your contribution to that, by your speech and by the reaction and the response that you got from the people in the room. So we will come on to that shortly, but in traditional Intuitive Insights format, I'm going to start the conversation proper by asking you to share your career story with us. The audience are always really interested to know how people got into rail industry in the first place and what their day-to-day role looks like. So I'm going to ask you to kind of wind back a little bit to the beginning of your career. What did you do? Why did you do it? And take us into the role of Treasury Manager at C2C and what a week in the life of that looks like.
Okay. God, this is a bit like This Is Your Life, isn't it?
I'm not sure you were old enough to remember that, actually, the big red book.
I do. Let me open the big red book. Okay. So, I mean, my first ever job was in Burger King in Lakeside. I didn't stay there very long. Wasn't for me. I didn't like that. But I then got a job in Debenhams, and I remember I worked in the champion sport department there, and what I remember from that is the socializing part of it. Right. I remember that no one wanted to be there. You know, it was like Saturday jobs. People were, after sort of college and things like that, people were just tired, but everyone still wanted to go out after on the Saturday night, on the Friday night. So that's what I remember from that. It's like building that sort of network of friends at work, having people to go out with, people you can just have a laugh with at work when you really don't want to be there. So yeah, I remember that fondly, always thinking about, right, where we're going to go tonight, what we're going to do after work. So my first proper job up in London was with Pearl and Dean, the cinema advertising company.
Wow, okay.
You know, the ba-ba.
I do, that's exactly what came in my head. That's the power of advertising, isn't it? Amazing.
It is, yeah. Actually, that's called, the music is called The Asteroid. That's so
Okay.
yeah.
There's a
Nice
pub
little
quiz bit of knowledge for us. Yeah.
factoid there for you.
Yeah.
So I worked in the accounts payable department there. It was actually kind of like a dual company. It's called a company called PrimeSite and Perlendine, both sort of advertising companies, but in different sort of advertising in different ways. So I loved cinema at the time. I loved going, seeing different films and that. So as soon as I saw the advert for that, I went straight for it, and
Right.
I got the job. And I remember all the sales team were constantly, they were going to Cannes Film Festival. They were going
Right.
to all these fancy
Very glam.
award shows. Yeah, and then I was there just inputting invoices, and I was like, there's something wrong here.
There's a bit of a Cinderella complex going on there, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Which I did really enjoy it there, but it's one of those things where you feel like you're constantly putting in more and then not getting anything for it.
Right.
And I remember I was just constantly, here's more work, here's more work, here's more work, and never get any other pay for it.
Right.
So I decided to, after about 3.5 years, decided to look elsewhere. And I started with EA Gibson Shipbrokers. So shipbroking, a completely different world.
Yeah.
So I was there for 12 years. I worked my way up to financial accountant, and I was studying as well. And again, it's just a completely different. I feel like I've worked in different places that have all had such different environments and working with such different people, and I think that's probably kind of helped me in a way. Like, you meet so many different people, so it helps you to work with people, because you can kind of understand different people and their backgrounds, and I feel with brokers, I remember that they're a strange being. That job is just all about entertaining. It's just all about taking your clients out. It's all about just earning as much money for the company as they can. So I worked in the finance department, and I dealt with a lot of their expenses, and so I constantly had to ring up the brokers and say, you've spent way too much money here. You've gone to this restaurant and spent a stupid amount of money on one dinner. And but it was other things as well. We had offices in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in the US, in where else? Norway as well. So again, it was working with lots of different people from different countries,
different cultures as well. There, isn't there? Very different in terms of Singapore, USA, and Norway, and obviously then the UK in there as well.
Yeah, and you find that with brokers as well, especially shipbroking, it tends to have its certain markets, and those people you'll find they're all going to be in London working for those sort of companies. So straight away you're meeting these different people. And I felt like from a young age I was meeting these people from different cultures, as you say, different backgrounds. So already it has an imprint on you and how you work, and understanding that people do come from different places, that people do have different work ethics. They do, I think culture really has a big effect on work, on companies, and how they operate. So, but yeah, so I was there for 12 years. I loved it there. It was the people were great. I loved the people. But I feel like I've got to a point where, as I've been here for 12 years now, this is a long time. I needed a new challenge. And I also felt like I wasn't enjoying the management account side of finance.
Right.
I just got to the point where I'm doing all this studying for something I don't really enjoy. So I felt like I wanted to go in a different direction. And funny enough, about how did you get into rail or into transport, I feel like it actually came to me. I wasn't looking specifically for a role. and a recruiter came to me and said, we've got this job at C2C, it's for a Treasury Manager. And I remember thinking, what does a Treasury Manager do? It's
exactly what I thought.
Yeah. I just thought, well, it's money. I could deal with money. I could do that.
Yeah.
And it offered me it's going to sound strange, but it offered me a way out of something I didn't want to carry.
Oh, we've lost this.
Pursuing. I felt like I was studying different. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just lost you, but then it caught up. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Yeah, it gives me a sort of a different route in finance, something more I could explore. So I went for the job, met great people there, and yeah, that was what, 5.5 years ago now.
Right.
So Treasury Manager.
Yes, do tell.
It's actually it's a very, I feel like it's completely changed over 5.5 years. Obviously, with COVID, the job is a completely different job, I feel, now to what it used to be. Obviously, the normal day-to-day stuff is still there, but the way I operate, the actual role has really changed. We, like most so many other train operator companies, are part of a franchise, and so we're owned by Trenitalia. So I was constantly, I had to keep my cash flow up to date to know how much we were getting the loan from the Italians, to the amount of money we could use to operate the company. So I had to know how much I had in my account all the time, and be able to pay that loan back, work out how much interest would be on that loan, and then make sure I had enough to cover that interest as well. Right. Obviously, I'm sure most people will appreciate in rail, there's always something that comes up that you didn't think about, that you didn't budget for. So straight away you have to then change your cash flow. I can't now pay that loan, that amount of that loan back. I have to go to the Treasury team at the at FS, Ferrovie dello Stato, which is who owns Trenitalia, and explain that right now I'm going to have to pay a different amount, and I'm going to have to change the interest. So it's very much juggling lots of different accounts, lots of different payments, and knowing exactly how much you have to pay and when you're going to pay it. And obviously with again, people appreciate there's so many contractual payments you've got to make for a rail company. For the rolling stock, for the maintenance of that, for the DFT, and there was just so much constant. I remember when I first started, I remember thinking, oh my God, there is just so much to do, so much to pay. I remember speaking to my husband when I first started that week, and I was like, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to, I can't do this. I can't, it's just too much. And I didn't have much of a handover as well. It was, I had to, so before I left my old job, I had to kind of work out a few afternoons I could leave early in my old job to go to the new job, just to get some
kind of understanding. A handover.
So that was really tough. I found it really difficult for the first I'd say about 6 months. I mean, I think for most people, for a job, it takes a while to really get into it, doesn't it? It takes a while
absolutely.
But I remember the first 6 months just constantly questioning myself, thinking, I can't do this, I can't do this.
I think with any job, Paul, it does take a period of time. But I do think, in all honesty, and I love the rail industry, I would not want to work anywhere else other than in transport. But I think the rail industry particularly is very complex. There are elements to it which are straightforward. If you look at it in kind of just, black and white terms, well, there's a train, there's a track, and there's people who need to do both and make sure that, that the track's maintained and the trains are there to run. So it's actually in that sense quite straightforward. But when you lift the bonnet up and you start looking around, I think it's incredibly complex.
It is, yeah.
So, and the financial elements of that, it just blows my mind, the layers and layers in terms of the contractual obligations and who's paying who for what, and then who's paying it back again, because they're all, it just feels like it's all so closely interwoven as well.
It really is. And it definitely took a while to get used to it.
Yeah.
But then I felt like, I mean, there's so much other elements of my job as well. It's just I'm the main relationship manager for all the bank accounts, for all credit card companies, for any sort of payment related systems or whatever we have. I'll be the main contact for that.
Yeah.
So I work with lots of all different departments around the company to make sure that things are running smoothly, that things are being paid for. Have we got any problems? Have we got with all the payment information that goes through to Lennon, everything that goes through there, everything has to be reconciled. Yeah. Me and my team will do that. So yeah, it's a lot, and I also lead the station accounts function as well. So
there's a lot of detailed work, isn't there? A lot of detailed work, a lot of complex work, and I guess a lot of systems to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Yeah. Lots of passwords to remember.
Oh my God, that blows my mind. But so is that obviously the role that you do, and being the person with the money, if you like, with the holding on to the wallet for C2C, all of that business critical stuff and really important. The area that how we met and how your story inspired me was obviously at the Pride event for at RIA, and I know that you are a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion, and so one of the things that that really impressed me, Paul, when I saw you speak at the Pride event was your willingness to share your own personal story. So I guess I'd love you to kind of expand on that a bit more for us in terms of the work that you're doing in relation to diversity and inclusion within the rail industry, because I know that's a huge passion for you. I know it's very personal for you. Tell us more about the work that you're doing and why it's important.
Sure. So I think after COVID, as people were sort of getting back to work, and I remember an email going around saying that we're going to create a diversity inclusion committee at work, and I remember they kind of give a description of what they wanted this group to do. And it just felt like this is something I completely resonated with. It was something that I felt inspired by. It was something that, and I think as we touched on earlier, I feel like I've worked with so many different people and appreciate that I understand the value of people and understand that everyone has something to offer, and their differences and their upbringings, their unique sort of differences, that's what helps in business, in companies, in different, that's bringing all those different people together. And I feel like I saw that firsthand in the broker, with brokers and in Gibson Shipbrokers. It's all these different cultures coming together, this sort of fusion of different people. So I straight away wanted to be part of that, and we had to submit a statement why you wanted to join.
Okay.
And I remember what really, and straight away what comes to mind is, I am gay and I am married, and me and my husband, I'd like to hold his hand. I'm just that kind of person. I'm a very affectionate person. I'm very quite touchy-feely, I like that. I like physical contact. So And one thing that really gets to me as a gay man is that I don't always feel comfortable to do that in public. And it's not because I don't want to do it, it's because I feel, am I going to offend someone?
Yeah.
Is someone going to say something? Am I going to get a funny look because of that? So, and what I felt for that is that also there's so many other people feeling the same way, but about a different thing.
Yeah.
You know, is the color of my skin going to affect my chances in this job? You know, is my disability going to, I'm not ever going to get an interview for this because all I see is a wheelchair. And you know, I think, and I know how that makes me feel. And I just want to be someone that is an advocate for that, that you can stand up and say that just because I am a bit different, just because I have, just because I'm different to you, doesn't mean I can't offer exactly the same thing or even more. So, you know, I put that pretty much sort of those sort of words into my statement, and I got accepted into the group. And it's just about making sure that everything we do within C2C is rooted through equal opportunity. I think it's looking at areas in, say, recruitment, or looking at how we celebrate our people, always making sure that everyone is visible, that everyone has a chance to say how they feel about something. Everyone has a voice, and it's we've done, you know, quite a few things. A lot of the stuff I do for the D&I group is I like to be quite visible on the internet. I like to write articles. I like to have interviews with our staff. If there's particular calendar events coming up, I want to then go and find someone that's affected by that, and why are you affected by this, and what does it mean to you, and can you express what this particular day or this month or this, why is it important to you? I remember I did for LGBT History Month, which wasn't long after I started in the group, and I did so much for that because I was so passionate about it. So I remember I did an interview with someone from our customer relations department about she is bisexual, and she wanted to explore that. You know, she didn't want to explore it. I wanted to explore that. You know, why? You know, tell me more about it. How does it make you feel? And the positives and the negatives of it, not just the problem with this. Sometimes we have this. It's like we want to put a positive spin on everything. That everything's fantastic. Look at us, you know, we're waving the flag. But it's actually so important to highlight the negatives and the bad things that come with this. And I remember she was saying how there's a certain stigma with bisexuality because people don't necessarily understand it, or they don't, you know, it doesn't exist. You're either one or the other, you know. So it's. But then I remember we did a thing for Ramadan, and it was something I didn't know enough about. So I spoke to one of our colleagues who's was Muslim at the time. Sorry, he still is Muslim. He's just not with us anymore. And I wanted to, you know, tell me about Ramadan. What does your family do at Ramadan? Why is this festival? Why is it important? What does it? And it's not only just about for the religion as a whole, but you specifically. What does it mean to you? How does it make you feel? And why do you celebrate it? And how can I educate the rest of C2C? What can you tell me about it that will help people to understand? So we do a lot of that. We do lots of interviews, we're trying to do sort of more video interviews as well, so people are a bit more visible. We recently did the Trainbow. So the managing director Rob Mullen asked us to do a Trainbow, which was a fantastic opportunity.
I love it.
It was a great. it was something for me, for my career, that really helped me. I've always been very open with who I am, but it was one of the first times I could really lead with that.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because this is what celebrates who I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I feel like I could go on for ages. But there's so much stuff that we've done.
There's loads that's going on, which is absolutely just brilliant to hear. There's a couple of words that I want to pick up on, Paul, in relation to what you've just said, and one of them is visibility. And I think from that perspective, you know, you standing up at that event, sharing your own personal story in a very visible way. Trainbow is another thing, you know, that is, you know, you can get more visible, could you? It's a bloody big train with a rainbow on it. It's, you know, it's kind of, it's right there. This is what we're celebrating. So I think visibility in whatever format, but people being prepared to kind of share their stories and be visible for who they are, and not just the job title that they've got, but the actual person that they are, and feeling that there is that safety, there is a safe space to be able to do that. And we know that the whole industry is not yet a safe space to do that. So there is almost a feeling that, well, tread carefully, but don't not do it. You know,
Yeah,
be able to share your story.
And I think it's explaining to people that just because we're at work, just because we're colleagues, doesn't mean we can't go that step further and actually really get to know each other.
Yeah.
And I think when you actually understand someone's story, it opens up opportunities.
Yeah.
How you work with that person, how you see that person, how you interact, and then you see their life, you see who they are. And you know my story. I was married to a woman, and because I felt that that's where I should have gone with my life. That's where I felt like, and it wasn't like my family weren't accepting. They were. It's just, sometimes it's society. It's the way that my families were brought up before that. It's kind of sometimes instilled in you that you have to live a certain way. But then I did. I came out when I was 27. Me and my ex-wife, we had a son together. So I've now got a 13-year-old son. But it was a very hard time. But it's made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And it is my story. Unfortunately, there is some low points. There is some really bad negatives there. But there's also such joy there as well.
Yeah.
So in me telling my story, it not only gives people the courage to say, oh, I'm also gay, or I'm also struggling with my sexuality. I've been there when I felt like I couldn't be who I am. So I relate to that. So as soon as you say to someone, I've been through that, you're helping someone.
Yeah.
And even if it's just you're only helping a handful of people, but it really does make a difference. Yeah. And that's what I love about diversity and inclusion, is that just highlighting that someone, their differences, someone's religion, someone's past, someone's disability, so what they have to face every day, what they live through every day, just putting a bit of a spotlight on that makes such an incredible difference, and empowers someone, makes them feel seen, makes them feel valued. So I think it's so important, and we have to keep doing it.
Absolutely. And I think that brings me to the other word. So visibility was this. There's loads of words, there's loads of stuff that's going on in my head here. Visibility is key, and you are doing that, and lots of other people are slowly but surely feeling that they can also kind of stand up and say, well, this is my story, this is my lived experience that I'd like to share with you so that you can better understand. So, in my business and in my team, it's kind of very much as individuals, it's all of us have got personal values around this, and we have company values, if you like, that say we want to engage with everybody. We want to understand where everybody's perspective is coming from. But, you know, we've all got our own characteristics. So as a straight, white, middle-aged woman, I want to say middle-aged really, but, you know, that means I'm going to live to 106, but, you know, so crack on. So from my perspective, I can't understand how it feels to be a gay person because I'm not. What your story did for me, and I've got loads of friends who are gay, and you know, people I love dearly in my life, but when I heard your story and about the holding hands, that really struck a chord with me. And I was walking down from King's Cross to Euston Station the day after I'd met you, and was walking down really busy, and there was two sets of two women coming towards me who were holding hands, and two men who were holding hands. I was much more aware that I do a double take, Paul, because it's not something that still now that we're used to seeing. I'm not doing that double take in a kind of like, oh my God, what are you doing? It's just a kind of automatic reaction. But I was so much more aware that I was doing it after hearing the conversation, you know, the speech that you did at the event. And then kind of saying, right, okay, so how do I follow that up? Because I've gone like that. So what do I do now? And it's kind of like, well, I'm just smiling. I'm kind of feeling positive about that, because how brilliant that those people feel comfortable to be able to do that. And society, therefore, must be changing. So the other word is educate. It's that education. It's that feeling that as allies for lots of different underrepresented communities, what can we do to help? What can we do to support? And I think for me personally, there's such a lot around education and different things we can read, different events we can go to, different things we can get involved with, which help us understand, and having better understanding helps then people who are in those underrepresented communities being able to feel safer.
Yeah, totally. And it's I feel like that's the direction that D&I is going in. I think it's still a relatively new concept. I mean, I know it's been around for a while now, but when you look at it is something that's really come to the forefront the last, I'd say, sort of 5 years or so. And I feel like the first part of this was to bring it to the forefront and to tell people about it. But now I feel like it's going in the direction of, it's about educating and allyship. It's about supporting these things, supporting that everyone is different, and what can we do to educate ourselves, and what can we do to be a better ally to that. I feel everyone is aware of these things now. People are aware that we have to be much more mindful, especially at work, in companies, in the workplace. We have to be more mindful of these. But now, what's the next step? How do we carry on educating ourselves, and how do we be better people? How do we be a better ally to everyone? So, and what I feel also is that it's being an ally to everyone. Not, you know, even if you don't have something that specifically makes you different, still you can be an ally to someone, and they can be an ally to you as well. It's just appreciating that everyone is different, everyone has something to offer.
Which I think leads us nicely into this part of the conversation, part of the podcast, where I say to my guest, if I could give you 3 wishes in terms of how we would do things differently, or how the industry could move forward, what would your 3 wishes be, Paul?
I had to really think about this. And I feel like I've come up with 3 things that are very different.
Okay.
So my first wish would be everyone to just slow down.
Okay.
I think everyone I wish that people could just stop in the moment, just slow down, appreciate what's happening, appreciate what is being asked of them, appreciate what is important in the task itself, what actually really adds value, what is something that's going to make a difference, you know. And I'm going sort of away from the D&I perspective here, but what I mean is just in your everyday work, what adds value, what's going to help the company, what's going to help the people around you. I think, you know, and I think we were talking about this, you know, earlier on, just saying that everyone's just so busy. It's just trying to get everything done. I wish that we could just slow down a little bit. We could push back a little bit, say that's not, that deadline doesn't work. It's actually too tight for me. It's not going to, you know, I'm going to have to get my team to work so much harder than what they already are working to deliver that. And I think obviously the post-COVID world, you know, everyone, we're doing things differently now, and we're reporting to the DFT, and obviously with them, you know, giving the money to the train companies to operate the companies there. It's we're all working in a different way. We're still actually adapting to that. And I think everyone just needs so much of each other. It's everyone, I need this now, I need this now, I need this now. My first wish, just slow down. Just really, you know.
I love it.
My second wish, I would say, is this is going to sound a bit silly, but it's purely from a finance department perspective.
Right. Okay.
Again, not from nothing to do with D&I, but it's just one thing I find really frustrating is audits in finance with a rail company, because people come in, the auditors come in, and they know nothing about rail.
Right.
So every single year, we have to go through all the same conversations again, explaining everything all over again. My wish is that there would be a specific auditor that is purely centric to rail. Wow.
So consultancies, listen up. That sounds like something which the big auditing and tax organizations need to take some notice of, because it would make perfect sense to me. Absolutely.
It's just, I find it so frustrating that this audit is taking so long, because I have to explain everything I do again and again and again every year to a different auditor that has no idea about rail.
So there's a gap in the market there, Paul, is what we're saying. Blimey. Okay. Brilliant.
So that's my second wish. My third wish is, I feel like I'm going to sound like Miss World here, but just, it's, world peace. It's not that. It's just, it is just where everyone accepts each other. Everyone, and I want everyone to appreciate that even if they don't have the opportunity to, I know that this person who I don't know can add a real value. They might not know, again, they might not know the industry, they might not know the specifics, they might not have the education, they might not have the requirements that are needed to do this particular job. But I bet you if they came in, they would have an idea of how to actually improve something. And I think it's just accept that everyone, no matter where they come from, no matter what their circumstances are, it can really add value.
Absolutely.
So
there's such a lot now, isn't there, which I'm kind of very aware of myself on my own kind of social media feeds, and just a phrase which I think is being used more and more: be kind. Just be kind. In a world where you can be anything, be kind and accept and appreciate each other, which doesn't mean that we have to like everybody. It doesn't have to mean that, everybody gets an invite to your birthday party. It means that we just, in our day-to-day lives, we appreciate that everyone is bringing some value, whatever that might be. So I think those are a fantastic set of wishes, and very, very different to each other, as you say, as well. Brilliant. So my final question, Paul, is I kind of like to leave the audience with a shot of inspiration. And for some guests, that is a motivational quote, something which means something to them. Other people share a book that they've read that's inspired them, or a podcast, or whatever. What would you like to leave us with?
Again, I had to really think about this. There's a few, so I'll give you a couple of things, but then I'll just kind of end with the main one.
Great.
I remember a teacher telling me in my leavers book from school,
Right.
and she wrote, "Tread softly, for you tread on my dreams."
Oh, wow.
And it has never ever left me.
Mm.
It's never left me. It's just such a beautiful sentiment, and it's just about how we all have dreams. We all, and just be careful with each other. Be careful. Let people have their dreams. Let people, be inspired to be whoever they want to be. And I've always loved that. It's always definitely had an effect on me.
Yeah.
My mum's always been quite a big inspiration to me. She is just someone that, beats her own drum. So what's the saying? She goes to the beat of her own drum. So,
yes. Yeah.
And she's always encouraged me to be myself.
Right.
Just be yourself. Just she's always said that I have a lot to offer. And I've always listened to that.
Yeah. So she's always been a fan, your biggest fan by the sound of it.
Yeah. No, she is. She definitely is. She's and it's nice to see that. It's nice to see that in someone's eyes when
it is.
When you feel like you are really loved in that way, and so. But what I'm going to leave you with, I'm a huge RuPaul's Drag Race fan.
Right.
And pretty much every show, RuPaul ends with, if you can't love yourself, then who the hell are you going to love?
Right.
And that, it just means so much. I think everyone should just be proud of who they are. Just love yourself. So many people go through this, and I've been through it myself, where you just don't understand who you are. You just don't. Why do I feel different to other people? Why does it feel like this? Why am I not? Why does my brain sometimes not make sense? But it's just been accepting of who you are. Just love yourself. You really are amazing. You are a great person. You're a fantastic. You offer so much to everyone. You can make a difference in this world. So just love yourself and just show everyone who you are.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. I absolutely love it. I'm having a rush of emotion. The tread softly because you tread on my dreams. I actually had there was a picture on my daughter's wall when she was probably about 3 or 4 that I had framed in her bedroom, which said exactly that. So when you use that, I had this rush of emotion because she's 19 now and she's off at University of Leeds, and that particular picture isn't on the wall anymore, but still very, very relevant. And I absolutely love that quote. I don't watch RuPaul, but my colleague Caroline does, and she raves about it. So I think maybe I need to watch a bit more telly and be inspired. Paul, I am absolutely so grateful to you for sharing your thoughts, sharing your experience, your career story, being with me on the Intuitive Insights podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do next and the massive value that I know that you'll continue to bring to the transport industry in terms of diversity and inclusion. I think you're a force to be reckoned with, and I think that the energy that you're bringing is significant. So I shall watch with interest. I'm delighted to be part of your network, and thank you again so much for joining me on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story, to say how I feel about things. It's really powerful to do that, to offer that to someone, to say, welcome you onto here, and tell us who you are and share your story. So, no, and I think what you're doing is amazing as well. And I've same to you. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I'm hope we work together in the future again soon.
Thank you so much, Paul. My huge thanks to Paul. I will admit to a few emotional moments as we went through that conversation. I think Paul is one to watch in terms of the future changes that we will see in the UK rail industry in terms of diversity and inclusion, and I wish him all the very best with that. I'm proud to know him. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and come and join us again, won't you?